What's up, you guys? This is Rob from Gay Guy Plays, and today we're gonna be taking the daily grind and we're gonna be smushing in a little bit of dress to kill. So I'm thinking technically we're going to be dressed to grind because we're gonna be covering basically kind of like every single palette. Now this is gonna be part one in a two-part series because I was like, ugh, 22 palettes, that's a lot to cover in one video. I don't know if 1 minute a piece for each palette would be enough time with all of the disclaimers and everything that I normally have to say, so let's actually jump onto that. Keep in mind that whenever I talk about any one of these palettes or I talk about any one of these colors, it's just kind of like how I interpret those colors and how they feel to me. So don't feel insulted if you love a color and I just like say, I would never ever use that. Remember that when it comes to fashion frame, I have a very specific aesthetic and I make things that I think are pretty. If I'm gonna be completely honest with you, when I first started doing the Dress to Kill series, I made a lot of looks to make looks. And they were always kind of like, for me, I was like, oh, well, that's as good as they're gonna look with that. And I was like, at the end of the day, there was a lot of things that I was unsatisfied with. So I started kind of like stopping myself and saying, hey, listen, if you can't make something that you feel good about, then don't fucking make it. So that's why I'm kind of touching on, you know, these palettes, because I want to show you guys what I reach for. A lot of people ask me, you know, it was really weird. Somebody referred to me as the god of fashion frame earlier, and I was like, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. I'm just like a dude that just makes things look pretty to himself. And I know I get a lot of flack. A lot of people say that you're really bland, like the looks that you put out are really like dull, yada yada yada, so on and so forth. And I mean, I can't disagree with that, but that's my aesthetic. I like things to look a little bit more muted, a little bit more refined. Like I'm not trying to make a Warframe for a midlife crisis, okay? It's not gonna be like a fire red Mustang. You know, I'm not going to slap that on my Warframes unless there's something very specific that I'm going for. But anyway, I'm rambling. That's my disclaimer. I make things that I love. I don't expect you guys to love them back. Always stay true to what you want to do and what you want to look like. Never ever let anybody else's judgments, especially in the world of fashion frame, dictate what you do. So I mean, if you want my opinion on things, you can have my opinion, but legitimately, if it's not like muted and refined, I'm probably not going to be too hot on it, but that's not a big deal, because you should be happy with what you make. Anyway, we're going to shut the fuck up, and we're going to move on to the first topic. So one of the things that we're going to start with is the Gamma Palette and the Classic Palettes. I get a bit of flack when we talk about the Gamma Palettes because it's not available for people anymore. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you, it's really not a massive deal. I actually did a bit of a comparison for this. So, now, the colors, actually, let's go back, because, you know, I'm disorganized. The colors that I tend to go for a lot within the Gamma palette is this square down here. I also tend to use this block right here too, but this is really the wheelhouse. It's a lot of my, like, off-whites, my muted kind of, like, accent tones. You can kind of see it gives a little bit of color, but it's not like too in your face about it. I really love that tone right there. And I know that seems so fucking boring to so many people, but I love that. I also love this tone right here. Oh, it's so gorgeous. So those things, and I love these off-whites because they give like a soft tinge of color. This is like kind of like a yellowy off-white. This one's a little bit more blue. That one's a little bit violet. Love that. The only other things that I use this for is really like these two rows right here. So that one and that one. Just for like really deep, rich pops of color. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to look, since I said that I really like those four tones at the bottom, I want to show you the difference. So this is what you would find in the Gamma palette. So the palette that's not available anymore. And this is what you would find in the Classic palette. You can see, like, the tone is the difference in those tones are so minuscule that it's really not a big deal. So don't be angry at me. Don't get angry at me if I'm using Gamma. You can just use Classic and just replace it. I just know that personally for me, I would rather have a little bit I would personally sometimes like things to be a little bit more muted, but I can get a little bit more control over the tonality. What you'll really notice is the change between the Gamma palette and the saturated. Like that has a lot more, you know, that has a lot more tone to it than this one. This one is a lot more washed out than that. Now, where you can see the biggest difference between the Gamma and the Classic palettes are in their brighter colors. So as you saw, this is actually the center point red right here on every single one of those palettes. So here is the Gamma, and as you can see, it really, just the jump from Gamma to Classic, it really richens up. So, and then between Classic onto Saturated, like Saturated is like super in your face. I'm like, it's a lot. It's a lot. So you can tell from here to here, massive difference. Massive difference. And from here to here, you still get a decent amount of difference. You can kind of see the difference in there. But, you know, there's a lot of places to get kind of like those muted tones. Really, like I said, what I reach for is those boxes down at the bottom. So let's take a look at the Classic palette, and I'm gonna say very similar things to this, but sometimes, because of the fact that this one's a little bit more washed out, sometimes I like reaching for this a little bit more, because you get a little bit more oomph in those tonalities. Now, what I would use the Classic for, really for the rest, right up here, and as well as the Classic Saturated, because I pretty much use them for the same tonalities, like I was saying, like you get a little bit more oomph in the tonality for these colors, but it's really not that much of a difference. The only thing that I would really reach for up here are kind of like the brighter tones, and I would mainly use those for energy colors, really. Everything else, like these two bars on Classic Saturated are just too intense for me. For Classic, it's not as bad in those two, so I would, you know, I may reach for them from time to time for accent colors. But, you know, if I can go into Gamma, that's where I'm going to go to. So let's move along to the Corpus Palette. This is where I'm gonna start being mean. I know I feel bad saying these kind of things, but legitimately, from this down to this, I'm like, it's all throwaway tones. I don't, there's really nothing that screams out to me. This yellowy mustardy tone might be the only thing that I might consider in this. No, not even those ones. This actually is not as bad as I remember, because it's kind of like a muted yellow, and you don't really get the muted kind of greeny yellows too much. But legitimately, all of this up here is just throwaway to me. I have no wants or needs for that. These three red ones right here, I really like them for energy colors, because they're kind of weird and unique. Like this weird, actually let's jump into the energy colors themselves. Let's flip you around, baby. That doesn't sound sexual at all. Like right in here, like look at the quality of that. Like it's just a really nice weird corally pinky red. It's the same thing here. It looks more orange as we look at it here, mainly because it's Proto Excalibur. But legitimately, the energy colors on them are just absolutely fantastic. This one is nice too because it's a weird like red, orangey, bricky red. And a lot of the times people will go for straightforward, very much just like this is blood red, and everybody wants that kind of like stalker tone. But legitimately, I'm kind of a fan. Let's see if that changes things. Oh, yeah, look at that. That's fucking gorgeous. That's just gorgeous right there. Now I don't even remember what tone I used on this originally. No, let's go back. I think it was that one. All right, now let's move along down to the let's move along down to the bottom part of the Corpus palette, right about here. Oh, Lotus, you gotta get right on top of this. So from this to this, that's my wheelhouse in the Corpus palette. I know, it's all of the really bland, boring colors, but this is a great go-to green. Like, look at that. That's my fucking wheelhouse right there. That's a gorgeous, that green is just gorgeous. Same thing for this blue. I mean, this blue, and I'm gonna be blunt with you guys, a lot of the times when we just have so much blue that I'm just kind of like, all right, it's a nice blue. I feel like I could find that blue in a lot of other palettes, but legitimately, whatever. Now this is one of those tonal blacks, and it's really weird because I have this very crazy feeling when it comes to off-whites and tonal blacks. It's it's gray, but you try to get the right shift of gray, because as you can see, this is a shade of gray, that is a shade of gray. They don't necessarily have the same temperature to them, so sometimes when I get really, really antsy, I will go through every single gray that I have, and I'll be like, what gray is the most similar to this gray's temperature? Because as we know on Proto Excalibur, this is untintable. That is just the way that that is. So we're not going to be able to do anything with that. But as you can see, even with these two grays, one is a bit cooler than the other. So this is a really good, cool gray. The browns, you just gotta have tans and browns. I don't know why, but sometimes, but they always come in handy, and a muted brown always comes in handy. So that's definitely a big plus. This purple row down at the bottom is just too much. You can tell, like, when something's just a little too much for me, I'm like, oh, that's like... Anyway, let's move along. Now the Daybreak Palette. I really, really like the Daybreak Palette, except for the fact that it's a hot mess and it lies, okay? It's a hot mess and it lies. It has weird pockets of really, really pretty colors. Like, I believe that color's actually not a bad color, especially for energy colors. These three right here are pretty nice, and these three right here for energy colors are really nice. But they're still a little too saturated for me to use in like normal tones. It's like a weird saturated pastel. I'm like, you should be more muted or you should be more intense. You're weird. This is a great, like if you looked at this, you would just say that's gray, right? If you looked at this color right there, if you just looked at it in the palette, you'd be like, that's a gray. But no, you hover over it, and it's this really, really gorgeous, like soft violet, lavendery, purpley color. It's totally in my wheelhouse, but you would have never fucking known, because it's I don't know, this palette's weird. This pink is also kind of nice. It's really soft, but it's still a little too much for me. Now, if you're looking for blue grays and like off-white, blue, like cool gray tones and like blue gray tones, it's perfect. You have every gradient that you fucking need here. And remember we were talking about earlier, we have like a million blues. Well, guess what? This is very similar to the other blue that we just had. And we have a full fucking spectrum of it. So you can literally just tailor what kind of blue-gray you want from it. So that's why it's like, when we talk about blues, I'm just really not super impressed, because I feel like we have all of it. Now, continuing on with the lie, you see these weird shades over here, and you're like, oh, that's the weird orange, like, swatch panel. But no, it's actually, look at this. Look at that gorgeous, like, mauve-y, like, I'm right? That's, like, mauve? That gorgeous, like, mauve-y tone right there. I absolutely love it. I use that tone a lot. And even that one's really, really nice as an accent tone. I wouldn't necessarily use that on its, like, as a main featured color, but I would use that as something a little bit more tonal. In fact, let's try it. So this is my accent tone right here. Oh, please, sweet baby Jesus, let this work. But yeah, you can see right there, even that kind of works. That kind of works. You could create something around that. I would probably go a little bit like richer with it, like something like around there, but that's just me. We'll go back to the main color, but yeah, that's also what I want to note is this color is gorgeous down here. Like, look at that. Like, that is not what you would expect out of this orange blobby mess, but that's like a gorgeous, like, almost burgundy, but it's a warm, how do I put this? It's really well balanced, because it still feels reddish, but it definitely is a little bit cooler. And you would not have expected that in this part of the palette. Like, really. Like, there's some hidden gems in here. There's definitely some hidden gems in here. And as you know, you can probably see over here, this is a little too intense for me. There's some workable colors that you could use as accent tones. Like, that one's not too bad, but legitimately the rest of this for me is a bit of a throwaway. This isn't too bad either, but I feel like with blues, they're a dime a dozen. You could find like a million of them anywhere. Moving along, so after Daybreak, we have ourselves the Dojo Palette. Now, y'all know I'm fond as fuck of this. Discounting the blues. And there are a lot of blues in this palette, but I really do like this one. This green is like, I mean, it's a great accent tone. I know that I say that a lot of things are like too poppy, too strong, but like look at that as it deepens up, it really richens up into a really usable accent tone. Like this I would use an accent tone, and this I would use as energy color, and this is a fucking fabulous energy color. That shit is awesome. You guys know my love of browns, and you just need good browns. This is it's another neutral. It's very similar to my obsession with grays and how I always need the right temperature of gray. Sometimes you need the right temperature of brown. Same thing goes for here, right here. It's gorgeous because, and the reason that I like these kinds of tones is, notice when you get into these tones right here, it's a lot, the color almost washes out the detail. But when you use tones like this, you still see the detail, and the detail is like the focal point. It does not take away from the model. It lets the model kind of like shine and do its thing, you know, without necessarily killing it. Of course, when you get into the deeper colors, you can't really see it as much, but you know, I kind of stick to everything but, and then I'd use that for like a dark tone. The blues are fine. These blues are fine. Like, you know, right there. Like I feel like we just saw that in the Daybreak palette, right? Like we literally just saw that in the Daybreak palette. So I could, you know, I could go another year without seeing them do a palette that has blues in it. Now this green though, we need to like, I mean, like this kind of stuff, this is a pretty shade. It's not something that I would use, but it's not something that I feel that we've seen a whole lot of. So, you know, for some people who want this is where this is at, you know? And I use this as that to me is a really great accent tone right there, like these two. Oh, it's so rich, it's so gorgeous. That's a little bit dark, but I mean, still very, very usable. Energy color. I would not use this for anything else. This red is another one of those orangey reds that are very, very nice to use as energy colors. It shows up more when you do an energy color. The orange really speaks out a little bit more when you use it as an energy color. This yellow we've seen a lot of places, but again, this is kind of like on the muter end for some of the yellows. It feels like it's got a little bit more gray than some of those yellow tones, so I like it. You've seen this off-white, we showed that earlier. I can't use this, I can't use this. This is a nice dusty red, so it almost feels, I wonder how this compares. Let's take a quick look. Oh my god, so for those people who do not have the Gamma palette and you want that red that's dead center, boom, there you go, there's your red right there. I was like looking at it, I was like, I know this red, I've seen this red before, I feel this red. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for the Dojo palette. These ones are fine, but like I said, blues are a dime a dozen. Like, great energy colors, I'm not gonna knock them, because that'd be a fantastic energy color, but we have that in a million gazillion palettes. These oranges, however, at the bottom, they kind of give me a little bit of life. Like, if I was gonna use an orange in a look, this would be like one of the oranges that I would reach for. This one's a little bit too intense for me, but down right over here, oh, it's perfect. Beautifully washed out and muted, and another boring tone for Rob. We get to the Easter palette. How far down have we gone? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, so the Easter palette. Energy colors, pastels. I don't really have too much of a strong connection for these. I know a lot of people say, oh, they're muted and washed out, they should be right up your alley. Some of them are, and some of them aren't. Like, that is a great, like, muted warm tone yellow. I absolutely love that. That actually almost feels like one of the palettes that we looked at earlier that I was like, oh, you can get that. So some of these colors are okay and usable. However, the shades, like, I don't think I'm ever going to use that green ever. You know, that green, maybe, possibly. This is more likely. Like, these three are more likely for my use. These ones, not so much. Blues, dime a dozen. And it doesn't get light enough for me to want to use them as an off-white. You know what I mean? These ones down here are not too bad. Like, I think I only like the warm tones. I think I only like really up here and up here. Or down here. Not here. And then these weird ones over here, I'm just not a big fan of. Reminds me of, like, I don't know. I'm not a fan. So really, these three are the only ones I would really reach for. You can use them as energy colors too. They're nice and soft. They're not going to be too ridiculously in your face. Now, Xmas. Xmas, is weird to me because it's one of those like, what the fuck is even going on over here? I don't really know how everything kind of it's a little bit of a hot mess, not a hot mess in a bad way, but a hot mess in a kind of like an I don't understand you way. Again, blues are a dime a dozen, but this is actually one of the blues that I go for. Now I go for this blue a lot because, and this is, you know, something to keep in mind within like the Warframe fashion frame world. When you have like an abundance of blues, I don't necessarily want to go search through Daybreak for just the right blue. Sometimes I'll just come to Xmas because it's one bar of blues and one of them is gonna work. One of them is gonna work somewhere. Same thing kind of goes for this teal too. I come to the palette for this teal, like more, you know, more into the darker, deeper recesses. The reds are just the reds. I don't feel any attachment to these reds. However, I feel like this red is very, very close to the Halloween red that I use for Loki's energy color. So if you guys want a dupe for that, that's a dupe for that. This, you know, yellow browns, I'm cool with that. And what I actually reach for on this palette as well is I reach for these as my off-whites. I like these ones right here. You know, they're really nice, like soft. And that's the thing, when you're trying to get the, this is where I go crazy. It's kind of like where you're trying to get the temperature of the Warframe. You know, you can kind of like soften up, like look at this, like it kind of just gives a little layer of dimension. It really warms up the look. It doesn't necessarily take the look anywhere drastic. It doesn't do anything crazy nuts with it, but it just shifts it just enough to give it a little bit more like character. You see the details pop out a little bit more. It looks a little bit dirtier. It looks a little bit more worn in, and it adds that kind of character. Same thing for this. However, I feel like blues don't work as well as some of those like off-white browns. But even up here, these two right here, still do a good job of kind of dirtying it up. Here's a nice green. This one's a little bit of a, I feel like this one's a little bit of a tealer green than we had in the Dojo palette. But it's a nice one. That aside, it's pretty much all that I really reach for in that palette. Fire, 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 fire. I don't use any of this. Really, to be honest with you, what I really reach for in this palette are literally these two rows. That's it. That's all that we reach for. Like literally, that if this right here is Loki Knave's color, it's like black, but if you get a little glint of it in the right light, depending on the texture, you'll see a little bit of red looking back at you. That one's a little too red, so I was like, no, I still want to make it look black, but with a little glint. You'll see a little bit of red in there. It's too saturated a red for me. I'm not super into it. These are actually some of the colors that I use to replace dark prime colors. You know, all of the when primes are done with black. These two are two of the versions that I go for. And this is actually really cool. I know this sounds really weird because this is the fire palette. This actually runs as a cool gray / black. Beyond that, there's nothing that I reach for here. I like, that's a fine off-white, but I'll be honest, it's easier to go in other palettes that have other off-whites in there. Next up, we're gonna go, I don't even know where we're gonna stop. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we're gonna go down to the Halloween palette. Gamma we've already covered, so you guys kind of know my stance on there. Oh! The Grenier palette. This is where shit gets good, boys and gals. Remember when we talked about like the fire palette and how there's like, when we talked about that there was way too much choice in here? That's just too much. I don't need all of that. Sometimes you need just something simple to reach for. This is where I go for that yellowy, fiery energy. That or the Tenno palette where I just pull Ember's original energy color from that. This is where I go for that energy color. That is where I go for that energy color. This, I don't really use these colors too much. This I've actually fallen in love with on metallics. I use this specifically on metallics and not really anywhere else because I feel like it's too saturated. But when you put it on a metallic, it looks rusty and like really rich, and I absolutely love it. These greens right here are quite nice. I really do like these ones a little bit. They're a little saturated, so I tend to go for them as like the deeper, darker, like what I like to refer to as tonal blacks or like off blacks, because it gets really dark. And you know, just a little bit of light hits it, you can see a little bit of that green. Then as energy colors, I'm a big fan of this. It's a fun, It's a really fun energy color. Let's see if we can slap it in there and just kind of see, like, look at that, that's a cool, I could put that on proto, let's put that on Prototype's helmet. Let's do that, let's do that right now. Let's make a change right there. See, it's a really, I really like that color. I think that's a really cool looking color. And I'm definitely fond of that one a lot. So there, that was the Grenier. Now these blues, these ones I really like for energy colors as well. This one is a little bit standard for me, I'll be honest. But where it really shines, where this palette really shines, is these ones, because there's a really weird, it's like a green or teal. And I don't really feel like I've seen this in many palettes. It's like a weird green or teal, and if you're bored of like the standard like Orokin looking blue greens, swap into these. These have a really odd tonality that I kind of really love. It's something to kind of like play with, and I'm really fond of like taking something and just shifting it a little bit, and it almost takes on its own character, which I'm really big on. Now, this is where I get excited. This is where everybody rolls their eyes at me and they're like, "Oh, Rob, shut up. You and your fucking grays." All right, my grays. My grays. I feel like my lumps, my lovely lady lumps. So this right here is a green-based gray. We get a lot of blue-based grays. We get a lot of brown-based grays. We get some nice balanced grays, but if you can take it, it's like a yellow gray. It's like a yellow green that's been mixed with it. And I know it's really weird, and you're like, I don't see it, it just looks fucking great to me. Trust me, this is like a greeny yellow. It's like a really grayed out greeny yellow. And I kind of love it, because you don't find that tonality in many things, and sometimes, you know, you need it for certain looks. This down here though, this is a whole nother beast. This is actually a really rich pinky gray. And I know you're gonna be like, what are you talking about? But look, it's got a little bit of orangey pinkiness to it. It's like a little peachy gray. It's definitely got some, it looks almost slightly brown. It's like a brown and a gray made a baby, and I'm super into it. I mean, you could use it as a black substitute on certain textures, but really, like, that's such a rich color, and I love mixing that with like the rose gold stuff, because the rose gold has a little bit of a pinky tone undertone to it, so it just fits gorgeously. I love it. So I like this row right here and this row right here just make the palette for me. I love the Grenier palette a lot. It is a look maker for me, and it's something that I reach to fairly often. Now, the Halloween palette, it's really sad that we have to close out on this, because I don't really feel any strong inclinations to this, except for this red and this red, which I use on Loki, the Loki Knave skin that I use. So this is his energy color. And then sometimes when I customize, like say I'm customizing like the Legion or something, and it has some bits that if I just copied the straight color over to, that the rose gold is not going to look right, sometimes I'll substitute it with that red, so that red will give it some richness and kind of tie in the energy color a little bit. But beyond that, that's it. The energy color, energy color, energy color, energy color. And this, no, I wouldn't even. But anyway, that about does it for this installment. I hope that did something for you guys. I'm looking at the timer right now, and I spent way too much time talking. I am so very sorry. But that's the first 11 palettes that we got to take a look at. I hope that you guys got some kind of like information of how my brain works on this. The next episode should be a lot shorter, because I'm not going to do disclaimers and all that kind of hullabaloo. I'll just tell them to refer back to this video for all of that. But I don't want to take up any more of your time. So as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and let me know in the comments what you think about this. Was this a massive waste of your time? Did you hate this? It's probably a lot of me rambling, but I just kind of figured it's a cool way to be able to discuss all of this to you in a way where you get to see like how my brain works when I think of things. So and don't forget, touch your body. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.